My Ph.D. graduation turned into a full-blown telenovela. My stepdad stood up and announced his 5-year embezzlement scheme. But what happened next left everyone in shock. Let me back up a bit. I'm Elena Martinez, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had a pretty normal family. Sure, we had our quirks. What family doesn't? But nothing prepared me for the bomb that was about to drop. My mom, Sophia, built her catering business from scratch after immigrating from Mexico 20 years ago. She's the hardest working person I know. Always up at 4 a.m. prepping for events, juggling staff schedules, and somehow still making it to every important moment in my life. That business was her baby, her American dream come true. Then there was Marcus. He swept into our lives 8 years ago, all charm and business savvy. Mom fell hard. I get it. After raising me alone for so long, she deserved some happiness. Marcus seemed perfect, successful financial advisor, great with people, and he actually seemed interested in my research in bioengineering. He even helped Mom expand her business, modernizing everything from the accounting to the marketing. Elena, your mother's so lucky to have me, he'd say, winking as he showed her the latest profit margins. I'm making all her dreams come true. What we didn't know was that he was slowly bleeding the company dry. The signs were there, looking back. The mysterious phone calls, the late nights at the office, the way he'd get defensive whenever Mom asked about certain transactions. But Mom trusted him completely. Why wouldn't she? He was her husband, her partner, her supposed rock. My tia Carmen tried to warn us. Something's not right with that man, she'd say, but Mom would just brush it off as jealousy. You've never liked any of my relationships, she'd counter, and that would be the end of it. Then came my graduation day. I'd spent 6 years working toward my Ph.D., and everyone was there. Mom, Marcus, tia Carmen, my cousins, even my grandmother had flown in from Mexico City. The ceremony was beautiful, everything going perfectly until the reception. Marcus had been acting weird all day, checking his phone constantly, sweating through his expensive suit. I figured he was just stressed about work. Boy, was I wrong. Just as Mom was about to give a toast, Marcus grabbed the microphone. His hands were shaking, and his voice cracked as he spoke. I need to confess something, he said, and my heart dropped. The room went silent. Sophia, I've been stealing from the business. The FBI is investigating, and they're coming tomorrow. I'm so sorry. The glass shattered in Mom's hand, red wine dripping like blood down her cream-colored dress. The look on her face, I'll never forget it. Pure devastation mixed with rage. What happened next was chaos. Tia Carmen lunged at Marcus. My cousin Diego had to hold her back, and Grandma started praying loudly in Spanish. Mom just stood there, frozen, as Marcus backed away toward the door. How much? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. Almost everything, he replied, and then he was gone. Turns out, almost everything meant $2.3 million. He'd been siphoning money through fake vendor accounts, manipulating the books so skillfully that even the accountant hadn't caught it. Mom's dream was effectively destroyed. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Remember my research in bioengineering? Specifically, my work on developing more efficient food preservation methods? Well, it just so happens that one of my professors was on the board of a major food service corporation. When he heard about what happened to Mom's business, he approached us with an opportunity. The company was looking to invest in innovative catering services that could showcase their new preservation technologies. Mom's reputation in the industry was sterling, despite Marcus's betrayal. They offered to buy into the business, not just saving it but expanding it beyond anything we'd imagined. Tia Carmen, who'd always been good with numbers and who'd never trusted Marcus, took over the financial side of things. Together, she and Mom rebuilt everything from the ground up, this time with proper checks and balances. As for Marcus, the FBI caught him trying to cross into Canada 3 days later. He'd been running similar scams with other small businesses, but none as elaborate as what he'd done to us. He's serving 15 years in federal prison. Mom visited him once, not to forgive him, but to understand why. He cried, blamed gambling debts, claimed he'd meant to pay it all back. Mom just looked at him and said, I feel sorry for you. You had a real family, and you threw it away for nothing. The graduation pictures are still funny to look at. Everyone's faces caught in that moment of shock as Marcus confessed. Grandma says they're cursed and wants to burn them, but Mom keeps them. They remind me that sometimes the worst moments can lead to the best changes, she says. She's right. The business is thriving now, bigger than ever. Mom and Tia Carmen make an unstoppable team. Last month, they opened their 3rd location, and there's talk of a cooking show. Most importantly, Mom's happy, really happy, not the fake kind she was with Marcus. But the story doesn't end there. Just when we thought things were settling down, Marcus's past came back to haunt us in ways none of us expected. It turned out he had a whole other family in Seattle, a wife, and 2 teenage kids who had no idea about us. They showed up at our door one day, looking just as devastated as we had been. Sarah, his other wife, had found out about everything when the FBI came knocking at her door too. Marcus had been stealing from her family's construction business as well. Here's where it gets really weird. Instead of becoming enemies, Sarah and Mom became allies. They both had been betrayed by the same man. Both had businesses to save, and both were determined to not let him win. They started working together, with Mom's catering business handling all of Sarah's construction company's events. Their partnership became a symbol of turning betrayal into something positive. But Marcus wasn't done causing chaos. From prison, he tried to claim that part of Mom's new success was thanks to his initial business strategy, and therefore he deserved a share of the profits. His lawyer, a sleazy guy named Brad Thompson, started harassing us with letters and threats of lawsuits. That's when Tia Carmen revealed her secret weapon. Remember all those times Marcus brushed her off at family meetings, treating her like she was just the nosy sister-in-law? Well, Tia Carmen has a master's degree in forensic accounting that she never mentioned to him. She'd been quietly documenting his suspicious activities from day one, keeping a detailed record of every discrepancy she noticed. "I knew that someday we'd need this," she said, pulling out a thick folder of documents. "A woman always knows me more." Her evidence was so thorough that Marcus's lawyer dropped the case immediately. But more importantly, it helped the FBI uncover 3 other businesses Marcus had been stealing from. The man had been running a complex network of fraud for over a decade. The press got wind of the story, and suddenly our family drama was everywhere. Local news, business magazines, even one of those true crime podcasts wanted to feature us. Mom was hesitant at first. She's always been private about family matters, but she realized our story could help other small business owners protect themselves from similar scams. As for me, I did take that position at the Food Service Corporation's R&D department, but it turned into something much bigger. Inspired by Mom and Sarah's unlikely partnership, I developed a program that helps small businesses collaborate and support each other after financial crimes. We call it the Phoenix Network, because it's all about rising from the ashes. The graduation pictures that captured Marcus's confession? They're now blown up and hanging in Mom's original catering kitchen. Not to remind us of the betrayal, but to show every new employee that rock bottom can become a foundation to build something greater. Every Friday, we still have our family dinners, now with Sarah and her kids too. Tia Carmen teaches Sarah's daughter Maria about accounting, while Mom shows her son Tommy how to make the perfect mole sauce. Our family grew stronger not despite the betrayal, but because of how we handled it. Last week, we received a letter from Marcus. He wrote that he was sorry, that prison had given him time to reflect, that he wanted to make amends. Mom read it once, then used it to light the pilot light on her new industrial stove. "Some ingredients," she said with a smile, "don't belong in the recipe anymore." She's right, as usual. Our family story didn't turn out the way we expected, but maybe that's okay. Sometimes the best stories are the ones that surprise you, teach you, and show you that family isn't just about blood or marriage. It's about who stands with you when the world feels like it's falling apart. And sometimes, just sometimes, what feels like an ending is really just the beginning of a better story. But life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. 6 months after Marcus's letter, we received news that shook our newly stable world. He had died in prison. The official report said heart attack, but rumors suggested otherwise. The other inmates hadn't taken kindly to someone who stole from immigrant families. The strange thing about death is how it forces you to confront complicated feelings you thought you'd buried. Mom went quiet for days, processing the death of a man she had both loved and hated. Sarah struggled with telling her kids, especially Tommy, who had just started calling Mom Aunt Sophia, and finding his place in our blended family. Then came the shocking revelation. Marcus had a life insurance policy worth $5 million. He'd taken it out years ago, back when things were good, and never changed the beneficiary. Mom was still listed as the primary recipient. The insurance company launched an investigation, suspicious of the timing and circumstances, which brought another wave of media attention to our family. The press painted it as a karma story, the money he stole coming back in a twisted way. But it wasn't that simple. Mom struggled with whether to accept it. "This money feels tainted," she said during one of our family dinners. "Like his last attempt to control our lives." That's when Sarah suggested something unexpected. What if we use it to help other families like ours? The idea took root. Together with my Phoenix Network connections, Mom and Sarah established the Second Chance Foundation, providing support to families affected by financial fraud. The foundation offered not just monetary assistance, but also business mentoring, legal aid, and emotional support groups. Tia Carmen, now our resident fraud expert, started giving workshops on detecting financial red flags. Her sessions became so popular that she was invited to speak at national business conferences. "Who would have thought," she joked, "that my paranoia would turn into a career?" But the foundation's work stirred up old ghosts. People from Marcus's past started coming forward. More victims, more families, more stories of betrayal. Each revelation was like reopening a wound, forcing us to confront the full scope of his deceptions. The most surprising contact came from Marcus's cellmate, who delivered a journal Marcus had kept during his final months. Reading it was like opening Pandora's box. The entries revealed a man tormented by his choices, but also hinted at an even bigger conspiracy. He mentioned names of powerful people, corrupt officials who had enabled his schemes. This put us in a difficult position. Did we have a responsibility to pursue these leads, to expose the entire network? Or would that just drag us back into the darkness we'd worked so hard to escape? The decision was made for us when one of the names in Marcus's journal turned out to be Bradley Thompson, the same lawyer who had threatened us with lawsuits. He was now running for state senate, campaigning on a platform of financial reform and family values. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so infuriating. Mom and Sarah called a family meeting. Our now expanded family, including cousins, aunts, and even some of the people we'd helped through the foundation. The dining room was packed, the air thick with the smell of Mom's stress baking, 3 types of pan dulce and counting. We didn't ask for any of this, Mom said, standing at the head of the table. But maybe we're the ones who need to finish it. So here we are, about to embark on another chapter of this crazy story. The Phoenix Network is partnering with investigative journalists to expose the corruption. Sarah's construction company is providing evidence of similar schemes in the industry. Tia Carmen is working with the FBI's fraud division, her years of secret documentation finally serving their full purpose. As for me, I'm writing this all down, every twist and turn, every surprise and setback. Maybe someday it'll be a book, a warning and a testimony to the power of family. Not just the one you're born into, but the one you build from the ashes of betrayal. Mom still lights the stove with Marcus's letters. But now she's teaching Tommy how to make her special pozole, showing him that family recipes, like family itself, can grow and change and welcome new ingredients. Life's not just about the recipe, she tells him. It's about who you choose to share the kitchen with. And that's where our story stands today. Not ended, not quite resolved, but moving forward with purpose. Because sometimes the worst betrayals lead us to our truest allies, and sometimes the deepest wounds become the foundation for something extraordinary. Tomorrow, we'll have another family dinner. The table will be crowded, the conversations will be loud, and the love will be real. And isn't that the best revenge of all? But the story took another unexpected turn last week. As we dug deeper into Bradley Thompson's campaign, we discovered something that made my blood run cold. Remember my bioengineering research? The preservation methods I developed? Well, it turns out that Marcus and Thompson had been planning to steal my patents all along. I found emails in Marcus's old cloud account. Tia Carmen, bless her paranoid heart, had managed to crack his password. They detailed how Thompson would file competing patents just days after I graduated, using information Marcus had been gathering from my research notes for years. Every time he'd asked about my work, shown interest in my studies, he'd been gathering intelligence for Thompson's clients. The betrayal hit differently this time. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was personal. All those late-night conversations about my research, the proud smile when I explained my breakthroughs, even his presence at my graduation. It had all been an act. He'd been planning to steal not just Mom's business, but my life's work too. Sarah's daughter Maria, now studying computer science in college, helped us dig deeper into Thompson's digital footprint. What we found was staggering. A network of corrupt patent lawyers, paid-off reviewers, and shell companies all designed to steal innovations from unsuspecting researchers. But Thompson had made one crucial mistake. In his arrogance, he'd kept everything on his personal laptop, thinking his encryption was unbreakable. He didn't count on Maria's skills or her determination to protect her new family. The evidence we gathered was damning. Not only would it destroy Thompson's Senate campaign, but it would also expose dozens of corrupt officials and save countless other researchers from having their work stolen. The question was, how to release it? That's when Mom had an idea that only she could have come up with. Thompson was hosting a major campaign fundraiser next month, and guess who was catering it? Her company had been hired weeks ago, before we discovered any of this. Sometimes, she said with that glint in her eye that I'd inherited, the best place to serve justice is at a dinner table. The plan was simple but brilliant. During the fundraiser, while Mom's team served Thompson's wealthy donors their overpriced dinners, Maria would hack into the venue's display systems. Every screen would show evidence of Thompson's corruption, right as he was making his big speech about integrity in government. But we hadn't counted on one thing, Thompson's desperation. 2 days before the fundraiser, Mom received a threatening note. Not a legal threat this time, something much darker. If we went ahead with our plan, he would make sure we regretted it deeply. The old me would have been scared. The old US would have backed down. But we weren't the same people anymore. Marcus's betrayal had broken us, yes, but we'd rebuilt ourselves stronger. We had transformed from victims into warriors, from a broken family into an unbreakable alliance. Tia Carmen contacted her FBI connections. Sarah mobilized her construction worker unions for security. The Phoenix Network members volunteered to attend the fundraiser as guests, ready to livestream everything. Even Grandma got involved, insisting on attending the event herself. No one threatens my family while I'm still breathing. Tomorrow is the fundraiser. Thompson thinks he's about to launch his political career. Instead, he's about to learn what happens when you threaten a family that's already survived the worst kind of betrayal. Mom is in the kitchen right now, preparing the food with her team. I can hear her singing softly in Spanish, the way she does when she's focused. Sarah is helping Maria run final checks on the technical setup. Tia Carmen is coordinating with her FBI contacts. Tommy is practicing his photography. We decided he should document everything, turn it into a project for his journalism class. Me? I'm writing this all down, adding another chapter to our ever-growing story. Because that's the thing about family stories, they never really end. They just keep evolving, adding new characters, new challenges, new triumphs. Marcus tried to destroy us, but instead, he gave us something unexpected. A chance to fight for justice, not just for ourselves, but for others. Tomorrow, we'll serve more than just food at Thompson's fundraiser. We'll serve the truth, with a side of long-overdue justice. And yes, we'll still have our family dinner after it's all over. The table will be crowded, the conversations will be loud, and the love will be real. Because in the end, that's what this whole story has been about. Not just surviving betrayal, but learning that family is the strongest weapon against injustice. Stay tuned. Something tells me this next chapter is going to be unforgettable. And unforgettable it was, but not in the way any of us expected. The fundraiser started perfectly, almost too perfectly. Mom's team was in place, Maria had control of the systems, and Thompson was strutting around like a peacock, completely oblivious to what was about to hit him. Then everything went sideways. Just as Maria was about to launch our expose, the lights went out. Not just the venue's lights, the entire block went dark. At first, we thought it was Thompson, that he'd somehow figured out our plan. But then my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I know what Marcus did to you. I can help. Back kitchen. 10 minutes. I showed the text to Mom and Tia Carmen. We debated whether it was a trap, but before we could decide, another message came through. Marcus wasn't working alone. Thompson is just the tip of the iceberg. Your father's accident wasn't an accident. My hands started shaking. Dad's accident, the one that happened when I was 5, the reason Mom raised me alone, had always been attributed to a drunk driver. But now, go, Mom said, her voice steady despite the panic in her eyes. But take Tommy with you. His camera has night vision. The back kitchen was eerily quiet when we got there. Then a figure stepped out of the shadows. It was James Chun, Thompson's personal assistant. He looked terrified. Marcus kept records of everything, he whispered, pulling out a USB drive. Your dad was investigating corporate fraud at his engineering firm. They made it look like an accident, but he glanced over his shoulder nervously. Thompson was just a junior lawyer then, but he helped cover it up. That's how he made his connections. Before we could process this bombshell, we heard shouting from the main room. The backup generators had kicked in, and in the chaos, something even more incredible was happening. Thompson was having a very public meltdown, but not because of our planned expose. Sarah's daughter Maria, our tech genius, had discovered something we hadn't anticipated. While trying to hack Thompson's systems, she'd found evidence that he'd been embezzling from his own campaign fund. And guess who he was working with? Marcus's old cellmate, the one who'd given us his journal. The cellmate, it turned out, was a former hedge fund manager who'd been running investment scams from prison. He'd been using Thompson's campaign as a front for money laundering. When Thompson realized his own scam was about to be exposed, he completely lost it. In front of all his donors, Thompson started accusing everyone of conspiring against him. He pointed at Mom, at Sarah, even at his own staff. The more he ranted, the more he inadvertently revealed. It was like watching a man unravel in real time. But the biggest shock came when Grandma stepped forward. My quiet, prayer-whispering grandmother walked right up to Thompson and said something that made him go pale. Later, we found out what it was. I worked as a cleaner at your firm in 1995. I saw you shred the files about Elena's father. Grandma, my grandmother, had known something about Dad's death all these years but had stayed quiet to protect us. She'd been watching, waiting for the right moment, gathering information in her own way. The FBI agents Tia Carmen had called were already on site, and Thompson's public meltdown gave them probable cause to access his phone right there. What they found led to his immediate arrest, not just for campaign fraud, but for decades of corruption, including his role in covering up Dad's death. But we weren't done with surprises. Remember James Chun, Thompson's assistant? Turns out he's Maria's biological brother, given up for adoption years ago. Sarah had been looking for him for years, and here he was, right in the middle of our revenge plot. As Thompson was being led away in handcuffs, Mom did something that left everyone stunned. She walked up to him, looked him in the eye, and served him one last canopy. The truth, she said, always tastes better than lies. The fundraiser ended up on national news, but not because of our planned expose. Instead, it became a symbol of corruption exposed by an unlikely family's unity. The Phoenix Network's phone started ringing off the hook with tips about other corporate fraud cases. The Second Chance Foundation received a flood of donations. But the story isn't over. The FBI is now investigating the entire network behind Dad's death. Maria and James are getting to know each other, healing old family wounds while helping to uncover new evidence. Mom and Sarah are expanding their businesses nationwide, with a focus on hiring people rebuilding their lives after corporate fraud. Tomorrow, we're having another family dinner. The table will be even more crowded now. James is coming, along with some of the FBI agents who've become like family. Grandma's finally ready to tell us everything she knows about Dad. Tia Carmen is bringing her new boyfriend, who happens to be a federal prosecutor. And me? I'm still writing it all down. But now I'm also working with a group of scientists whose research was nearly stolen by Thompson's network. We're building something new, something that will make it harder for people like Marcus and Thompson to steal others' dreams. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. But in our family, we've learned it's best served with love, truth, and a side of unexpected justice. And this story? It's still unfolding. Because the best stories, like the strongest families, never really end. They just keep adding new chapters, new characters, and new reasons to stay together. P.S. Mom just got another text from an unknown number. Something about offshore accounts and a connection to a major tech company. But that's a story for another day.